Yeah, a lot of people have explained this longest substring without repeating characters. I just feel I should add my own understanding to it, and hopefully to help someone out there. The point is, you want to get the longest substring in this input string. The Based on the explanation of others, the way to understand the solution to this problem is you pick an index, say I. You position it at the beginning of the starting character because you are going to start counting your longest character from that first character. Then you continue to count until you get to the end, and that will be your longest substring, assuming there are no repetition. So if you say your I is 0, ordinarily your longest substring should be the final index, which is being indexed by your j, because your j also starts from I, from 0, and your j continues until it gets to the last character. So at the end of this for loop, your j is now in this last character. So you can just subtract j, you can just subtract I from j, and you had a 1 just because of the offset, and you can make your return. So that's what this is. So ideally the answer should be to just say j minus I, and you had the offset of +1 because of the subtraction, and you get the longest length, assuming there are no repetition in the input. But if there are repeating characters, then you need to introduce another variable, max length. Why? Because as you continue to increment j, you want to retain the maximum length that you have seen so far inside max length. So you keep incrementing your j, and you keep the copy in max length. So if we iterate again and your j changes, you keep the copy in the max length. So as your j is changing, we expect that if you don't meet any repeating character, your new value of j minus I plus 1 should be greater than the old value, which was stored in max length, and that should be updated into max length. At the end of the day, you return your max length. You see, I'm trying to break the code down and start from simpler one cases until we see the full picture. To summarize again, I started with, you start your I from 0, you allow your j to iterate through the string until it gets to the last value, you subtract your I from your j, you add 1, which is the offset, and that should normally be your return here. But because you could have repeating characters within I and j, so because of that, you want to keep the max length at every increment of your j. So because of that, you keep updating your max length. You need another variable to be able to keep updating your max length, which will be the one that you return. Okay, now we settle that case. Now, how do you handle when you see a repeating character? The only way you can handle when you see a repeating character is to have a record of all the previous characters. So as a result of that, we're introducing another variable, which is the sing characters variable, which essentially is a dictionary. And I will explain why we're making it a dictionary. We could have just made it a list and we just say, okay, we've seen A, we drop A inside sing. We seen B, we drop it here. We see C, we drop it here. But we need a dictionary because we just don't want to keep the characters. We also want to keep the index of the characters, the position of the characters. So a dictionary will give us a key value pair where the key will be the characters and the values will be their index. So for instance, in this scene, we will put A and we'll put A as the key and the index is 0 as the value. B as the key, the index will be 1. C as the key, the index will be 2. Okay, so that is clear. So when we start our iterating the input S, the first thing we want to do is to check whether that input, that first character, whether we have it already in our dictionary in the keys. If we don't have it, which we expect this to be false, then we add it into our dictionary and we put it index in the dictionary. So we start A, we don't have it in our dictionary, we put it there and the index. We get to B, not in our dictionary, we put it there and the index. We get to C, not in our dictionary, we put it there and the index. That should be pretty clear. Now things get interesting when we get to repeating character. Now when we now get to a repeating character like A, what that means is we cannot, our longest substring so far is A, B, C. But once we get to A, we cannot take that. We now have A repeated. What it means is we need to shift our I, which has been pointing to the first position, to the position of that repeating characters. We are going to shift our I, which is pointing to the first character, to the position after that repeated character that we mean should be after. So in this case, we just iterate it. Note that we don't know which value character we are going to encounter. In this case, we are encountering A as the repetition. So we take our I and update it to the character after A. So the character after A is B. So we start our new length from here. B, C, A will be the next valid character, the next valid substring. I hope it's clear. That's very, very important. So that is the reason why we are keeping the index of the same characters in the dictionary. So if you have already seen that, we will use, forget about these marks now and this bracket, just consider I to be equal to this that I highlighted. So we will use the dictionary to check for that repeated character. So that is the repeated character. So this is the dictionary. So we use the dictionary to check for the index of that repeated character. You know that character must have been in the dictionary before. So we check the one that has been there. Then we add 1 to it and we increment our I to that so that our I can move to the position after the repeated character. Then the current character that we are in, which is s of j in this case, that we saw that it was already in existence and repeated before, we update its index in the dictionary to the new index, to the current index. That's a bit trickish, but if you pay attention, you will get it. Let me use an example. We have started A, B, C. We are now in A. Now, A is already in the dictionary. That means this A. So, after we have used its index to update our high, we now need to reference this A in our dictionary. So we need to replace the index of this first A to the index of this new A. Why? In case when we go again, we see another A. If we meet another A here, if we don't increment this, change this in the dictionary to this one, then our I will now be referencing back this one, which is not what we want. Because once we see a repeated character, the idea is we must start our new counting from the character after it. I hope it's clear. So that's essentially what's happening here. Now let me now come to the marks. The reason why I have this marks, number one, is because of what I just explained here. Your I, once you have already incremented your I, let's say from 0, you increment your I here to 0 plus 1, it becomes 1. Now, if you meet another A somewhere here, okay, you don't want your high to go back to maybe 0. So definitely you want your I to now becomes this one, okay, whatever this is in the dictionary now, because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, so this is 3. So your new I should be 4, should start from here, 3 plus 1. So you want to take the max of the current I, which is 1, and your new calculated value. That's number one reason. The second reason, which is even more important, because the first one would have been taken care of if it is the same repeated character, because you have updated it in the dictionary. But consider a character like, say, B. So let's say you have updated your I to this place. Your I is now 1. Now by the time you continue, you now meet a character that is repeated. Let's say you meet a B that is repeated here. You meet a B that is repeated in front. Now, what you want to do is, you want to update your I from this position to the position of your B. So, for instance, in this case, by the time you get here, you meet a B, and you already have B in the position, so your I will change from this place, from the position it is, it will move here. It will move to the character after the repeated position B, and you will update, as we did for A, you will update your B index in the dictionary. But the situation is not represented in this input string. Now, imagine that we are passed through A, B, C in this as it is here, and then our high is now here, A, and then we now meet a repeated character which is not A. We meet a repeated character which is before where we have jumped to, which is before A, this place, this position. Then the repeated character that we meet in front here, what we're supposed to do is to make I to be the position of that repeated character. Let's say the position is here, plus 1. So that will now make our I to go back. Our high has been here. Our high is now in this position before, but because we now met a repeated character that is before the position of our I, that means we'll now be moving back. So our I is not supposed to move back. Instead of our I moving back, our I should remain where it is. That's what this marks is saying. That I should never decrement. Rather, I should increase or stay in that position. It's a lot there. I hope that makes some sense. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.